and welcome to the Energetics Astrology Overview for the Gemini Solar Cycle, May 20th through June 20th, 2021. This is Shelley, and I want to wish all of you Gemini Sun people a happy birthday. And because I forgot to do that in the Aries and Taurus videos, happy belated birthday to all of you Aries and Taurus folks. So in this video, we'll be looking at the energetics of the sign of Gemini, body, mind, and soul, as well as all of the planetary energies at play for the sun's ingress through the sign of the twins. And I will offer you some suggestions on how to make the most of these energies. And this may be a bit longer than usual because Gemini and Mercury are my muses here, and they are a bit chatty. So let's begin by covering some basic information that describes this dual-natured, communicative, and curious sign of Gemini who loves to be in the know and is infatuated by fun facts. As one who happens to be personally abundant in the air element, I am a huge fan of words, language, and all forms of communications. And I'm very excited to share these words and ideas with you today in hopes that they spark and satisfy your own intellectual curiosities. As the third sign in the zodiac, that is the first sign to bring in the air element in the natural zodiac, which correlates with our mental faculties, Gemini is also the first sign represented by the human animal. And here is an interesting fact. The English word zodiac derives from the ancient Greek term zodiacus, meaning cycle or circle of little animals. All of the zodiac signs, with the exception of Libra, are named after animals. Obviously, this includes the human animal. And in the case of Gemini, it's a pair of twins. Gemini is ruled by the planet Mercury, named for the Roman messenger of the gods. And while I could talk for hours about this character, who is also associated with the Egyptian deity Thoth and the Greek Hermes Trismegistus, just to name a few mercurial legends, I'll leave it at that for now. And if you're interested in learning more about Mercury, I invite you to go do your own research. You can also go to my website, astroenergetics.net, to get your free copy of my Mercury retrograde guide, where I do have a page or two on Mercury. So, back to Gemini. The twin energy of this sign represents duality, or the dual nature of the self. While Gemini is yang or masculine in its expression, having nothing to do with gender, what this means is its energy moves up and outwards. It also correlates with both masculine and feminine principles, as it needs to interrelate with all polarities in order to integrate the external into the internal. Its external focus is mutable air, as it deals with the fluctuating nature of time and space while figuring out this thing we call life. Gemini's qualities are warm, moist, and quick, which is suitable to its energy of communications and connection. Gemini likes to gather knowledge and connect the dots, and it rules the nervous system, which is the body's information network. As stated, in the body, Gemini does rule the nervous system. It also governs the shoulders, arms, hands, fingers, upper lungs, the respiratory system, capillaries, the tubes and tunnels and connectors in the body, the left brain, right brain, and motor skills. And here we have some of the psychological or mental functions associated with this sign. The higher lower vibrations or light shadow qualities do exist on a spectrum. However, when it does come to the Gemini energy, it can be a little more of this or that, as it has been known to change its mind, bouncing back from one polarity to the other. So the higher expressions are curiosity, wittiness, flexibility. It's a bridge energy. It's logical. The trickster, listening, connecting. It's creative energy. It's energetic. It has to do with storytelling, networking. It's light and vibratory and communicative. The lower vibrations would be considered scattered, superficial, gossipy, opinionated, indecisive, restlessness, nervousness, being ungrounded, inconsistent, impatient, unfocused, unreliable, overwhelmed, and avoiding things a bit. So, in the center, there is some mantras or declarations that really help support the Gemini energy. Trust your gut. It's all relative. Overthinking leads to negative thoughts. Creativity is intelligence having fun. So here we have the soul functions. And the soul function of Gemini is to deal with these themes here in order to learn, master, and communicate them. And they are to name things. It's about interrelating, movement, communications, figuring it out, current trends, learning and adapting, observation and correlation, logical intelligence, and integration of the external environment. So this brings us to our astrology for the Gemini solar cycle. This is a big month for all of us as we have two eclipses, which I will speak to again a little more later. We also have two planets changing signs and two planets going retrograde, one of which is Mercury, Gemini's ruler. And this is the second Mercury retrograde of 2021. One more to go this year, and you know what they say, third time's a charm. We're in the second time, which can also be a charm. On May 26th, we have a total lunar eclipse at the full moon in the sign of Sagittarius. Eclipses are known for eclipsing something. Generally speaking, the effects of a lunar eclipse are something that needs to be digested or released, whereas a solar eclipse indicates there could be a need for action. Though there are no hard and fast rules when it comes to these events, they are known for shifting the course of current circumstances in unexpected ways. One thing that perhaps is more agreed upon than others is that eclipse events can occur prior to the event and for up to and at least 4 weeks preceding the event. In some cases longer, and this is based on the duration that the light of the sun or moon is actually blocked. The lunar eclipse is taking place in the sign of Sagittarius on the north node. So if you are affected by it personally, it will likely have something to do with something from the past that no longer sustains your life. On May 29th, Mercury goes retrograde in its home sign of Gemini. So all Gemini themes will be up for review, revision, remembering, and all of the rewords. Mercury's retrograde in Gemini often brings up challenges around all things related to communications, and our thought process become more internal. Now, if you're born during a Mercury retrograde, this could actually be a great mercurial time for you, as the energy is already imprinted in your personal cosmic blueprint. On June 2nd, Venus moves into the sign of Cancer. As you know, Venus is associated with love, relationships, and beauty, as well as values and our desire for security. When she moves from the light-hearted mental realms of Gemini into the nurturing, protective waters of Cancer, this planet's sensitivities increase and become more instinctual and self-protected. You may find that topics related to home and family become more important, or issues around safety, love, and emotional security. So on June 10th, we have an annual solar eclipse on the North Node in Gemini. And as the North Node is associated with the future, this could bring in events that move our future trajectory into unexpected directions. The day after the eclipse, on June 11th, Mars moves out of the fire dampening waters of Cancer into the hot, expressive sign of Leo. If you feel like your get up and go got up and left while Mars was in Cancer, you will notice a significant change in your self confidence, your drive, your desires, and expressions when this planet finds its mojo again in a passionate and creative sign of Leo. On June 20th, just hours before the sun's ingress into the sign of Cancer, Jupiter goes retrograde in Pisces at 2 degrees. We have gotten a nice little taste of what the Jupiter and Pisces energy feels like since May 13th. Jupiter will slowly make its way back into Aquarius on July 28th. So we will be doing some Jupiterian backtracking in the sign of the fish until then. Retrogrades always tend to move the energy more inwards. And wherever a planet turns retrograde or moves direct, it hangs out there for a while until it can get back up to speed. The further out a planet is, the longer it takes. So on June 20th, the planet of expansion, in the sign of the dissolver of boundaries, pauses for a few days, and then it begins its backwards motion slowly. And as I said in the solar season video, pay attention to this particular energy in your life as you're getting a taste of what things might be coming up for you in 2022. Jupiter will be coming back into Pisces on December 28th and back to the exact degree of this where it went retrograde at 2 degrees on January 8th of next year. So now let's look at the major aspects the Gemini Sun is making in this solar cycle. There are just 4 of them this time. On May 21st, the day after its ingress into Gemini, the Sun makes a square to Jupiter in Pisces, who is still in forward motion at this time. Remember, Gemini represents the dualities in life, so any Gemini transit can go this way or that way or both ways within the confines of its perceived boundaries. Jupiter makes the boundarylessness of Pisces bigger. Boundarylessness, is that a word? Well, either way, I like it. So, Sun square Jupiter can bring a type of delusional fog or bubbly optimism. There is also a potential for a bit of self righteousness as well as a radiating creative logic. On June 3rd, which happens to be my beautiful sister's birthday. Happy birthday, dear Tammy. Shout out to Tammy. Shout out to Tammy. Definitely one of my favorite days of the year. This falls on a Thursday this year, and Thursday is actually named after the Norse god Thor. So on this day, the Sun makes a harmonious trine to Saturn in Aquarius, which can help liberate you from something in a responsible, innovative way through honesty, integrity, mental focus, and discipline. It's a rather nice aspect to have on your birthday, as whatever is happening in the sky at your solar return will be a theme that will flavor the whole year of that life, of your life, of that life, of this life. Gemini. So June 10th, the Sun conjuncts Mercury in Gemini, making it a very Gemini-inspired day for everyone. This is a great day for consciously expressing your creativity on purpose, sharing your enthusiastic thoughts and ideas, or writing your memoir. Just be aware of the fact that it can be pretty easy to get a little overstimulated, over chatty in a rambling sort of way, as well as overly scattered in a sunshiny way, of course. So, the last aspect the Sun makes in this Gemini solar cycle is a square to Neptune in Pisces. This particular energy can stimulate the imagination and creativity, as well as lean towards tendencies of escapism, mental confusion, delusional thinking, or even unclear communications, especially since Mercury is going to be comfortably settled into its retrograde by this time. All right, so now let's look at the transits for Mercury, Gemini's ruling planet, during this solar cycle. Now, as you probably already know, Mercury also rules Virgo, though there are astrologers who also associate Chiron as the ruler of Virgo, and that really is a story for another day. Anyways, Mercury is associated with messages, and its Gemini expression is very different than that of the Virgo expression. Well, both signs deal with information. The approach is what's different. A simple way to look at it is Gemini gathers the information and plays with it, whereas Virgo sorts through the information and works with it. This is not to say that Virgo doesn't play and that Gemini doesn't work. In fact, I believe Mercury helps Gemini do its work and likewise helps Virgo with some levity. And that too is another story for another day. So back to the transits. If you watched the Taurus solar season video, then you know that Mercury was super busy during that sun cycle. And here, well, it's in its ruling sign, the messenger planet slows down a lot, making just 4 aspects and 1 retrograde. And the retrograde is the key here. It's why it's not making as many aspects. Mercury is the fastest moving planet, not counting the moon, which really is a luminary. Anyways, astronomically speaking, the moon orbits the Earth and Mercury orbits the sun. So, out of all the planets that orbit the sun, Mercury is the closest to that big ball of fire, which gives this planet its speed. It has a shorter distance to travel, which is also why it goes retrograde more often. Which, by the way, is just an optical illusion. It only looks like it's going backwards from the vantage point of Earth. And I'm not going to get into all of that right now, other than to say that when a planet is turning retrograde or direct, it slows down. Therefore, it typically makes less aspects. Depending on where the other planets are, of course, when it's going through its retrograde cycle, and as well as how long the retrograde lasts. And since Mercury is the fastest planet, it also has the fastest retrogrades. So I'm not going to get into all the details. That would be more of a Virgo expression of Mercury. So let's just get back to Mercury's transits on Gemini for this solar cycle. On May 22nd, Mercury makes a square to Neptune in Pisces. With this transit, there can be some challenges with confusion, clarity, and honesty, as well as missing or misleading communications or information. Then on May 29th, Mercury will first conjunct then move past Venus before turning retrograde in Gemini. The Venus-Mercury combination in Gemini puts an emphasis on intellectual, objective, thought-provoking conversations, which can help bring clarity to matters of the heart, with the retrograde supporting self-reflection, your internal dialogue, and even the opportunity to reevaluate, redo, or recall important things that need tending to. On June 5th, Mercury has traveled back to where it was at the beginning of this retrograde cycle and makes another square to Neptune in Pisces, where more facts and data can be revealed around things that may have been unclear or uncertain for you around May 22nd. The second pass of an aspect during retrograde transits are a good time to start integrating the energies of your experiences with the planetary dynamics, as when Mercury is moving forwards again, it will be making one final square to Neptune in Pisces on July 6th. And then on June 10th, Mercury conjuncts the Sun in Gemini, and we discussed that already in the Sun transits. The other transits that are happening during this solar cycle are listed here. Venus in Gemini makes 3 exact aspects, Mars in Cancer makes 2, and the biggie here is the second Saturn Uranus square. The first exact Saturn Uranus square happened on February 17th, and the last exact square of these 2 big planets is happening on December 24th, 2021. Though you've probably been working off and on with this energy since November of last year when these 2 planets came into a close enough orb to activate this square energy. Much like the Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto conjunction of 2020 stirred up a bunch of change and moved us into this year. This Uranus-Saturn square energy is kind of prevalent throughout this year. It's continuing to shake and break, and it's going to help move us into 2022. And it's probably the most significant astrological event of 2021, though it may not be felt as obviously as some of the others, as these long-term transits typically are responsible for slower, bigger, and longer-lasting changes, especially when they involve the outer planets, which tend to have a greater impact on the collective. Now, if Saturn or Uranus are having any direct conversations with planets in your natal chart, then you will feel this and it's going to be personal for you. So, here we're looking at Saturn in Aquarius. I'll tell you a little bit about that. In traditional astrology, Saturn rules Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus in modern astrology. And we have Uranus, Saturn's co ruler, in the sign of Taurus, the lovely earth sign that correlates with the land, money, income, and material possessions. Uranus is known as the Great Disruptor, or as some say, the Great Awakener, which brings swift, unexpected change, like a bolt of lightning out of the blue, which is one of the reasons Uranus is associated with lightning. It's the Great Liberator as well. Saturn is the planet of structure, tradition, and the conservative forces and institutions that run the show. It likes the rules and it likes to maintain order. Our political structures, legal systems, high courts, and authority figures in general are ruled by Saturn. It's also associated with constriction, time, and karma. Uranus correlates with humanitarian causes, social organizations, for the people, by the people, liberation, freedom, activism, and rebellion. As it was once ruled only by Saturn, it can also be a bit conservative in upholding traditions that do work and make sense for future generations. And a square aspect is often associated with conflict, tension, and strife. These qualities are typically what is needed to change what needs to be changed. So the energy that this transit deals with is unavoidable change that will likely include some unexpected disruptions, such as the Capitol riot, which occurred before the first exact square. And the guilty verdict of Daryl Chauvin in the matter of George Floyd's murder occurred between these two squares. Not to mention all of the ongoing protests and riots that we will probably see more of. These are all examples of collisions between old, outdated structures and the birth of something new. The old energy is still present and yet is being disrupted so that long lasting, much needed change can occur. In 2021, there are 3 exact Saturn Uranus squares, though the energies are strong enough to be activated throughout most of the year. Often, when events occur that are related to transits, they don't necessarily happen when the aspect is exact, sometimes before and sometimes after. So, some notable Saturn Uranus conversations in history include 9/11. This occurred around the time when Saturn was in Gemini and was trining Uranus in Aquarius. Saturn and Uranus were within a 6-degree conjunction in the sign of Sagittarius when Black Monday brought financial and economic collapse globally. Saturn and Uranus were almost exact in Sagittarius when the 8888 uprising was taking place in Burma, which is now called Myanmar. The protests and civil unrest resulted in National Democratic League temporarily overturning the socialist rule. However, the military never gave up its power, and protests for the restoration of democracy have risen again in that part of the world just this year. Myanmar's military promised to hold elections and transfer power back to an elected government, which still has yet to happen. So in 1522, when we had the same configuration as today, Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus and Taurus, the Protestant Reformation was born, giving rise to political and social breakthroughs which created a new order. Other types of events associated with these two planets in a square aspect deal with radicalization, gaining or loss of rights and freedom, industrial accidents, airplane crashes or accidents, extreme weather, natural disasters, technological breakthroughs, or technological disruptions. So, here in the United States, when the first Saturn Uranus square took place this year on February 17th, that's the U.S. Senate had just acquitted Trump on the charge for inciting the January 6 riots at the Capitol, and Democrats pushed for coronavirus relief. Texas was experiencing severe power outages due to the extreme weather that killed at least 21 people. And the NAACP filed a lawsuit against Trump, Giuliani, Proud Boys, and Oath Keepers. The White House announced increased vaccine shipments, food workers in 15 cities went on strike demanding higher wages, and there was a lot more. So this is, what's happening collectively. So with all of that said, we can see how that is happening for all of us, but maybe you're feeling it in your own life in other ways. So I would suggest tuning into what old ways are breaking down in your life or being disrupted. What new structures are being worked on? What kind of technological breakthroughs or disruptions are you dealing with? What feels or appears to have a sense of unrest or protest in your life? What conversations are you having with yourself around your own rights and freedoms? What wants to be liberated? Okay, so I just talked a lot about that aspect, so I'm not going to say anything about the others except beware of power struggles and confrontations on or around June 5th when Mars in Cancer opposes Pluto in Capricorn. What you want and what you're getting may be at odds on or around that time. So now let's take a look at how we can work with some of these energies of this solar cycle, starting with the Gemini Sun. I do have to say, Sun and Gemini energy can feel a lot like Mercury in Gemini and vice versa. As the Sun imbues the light of the other planets, Mercury is already spotlighted. And during this solar cycle, we have both. So, what I'm going to share about the Sun in Gemini can also apply to Mercury in Gemini, which we're going to talk about next. And once again, vice versa. So remember, Gemini is a mental sign that rules language, communication, words, what we name things. As I mentioned earlier, Gemini wants to know, and maybe a more accurate description of that statement would be Gemini typically likes a juicy question that allows its mind to delve into all the many possibilities. So it can change his mind and bounce from one shiny topic to the next. Like a boxcar rider who has the ability to jump from one moving train to another. And that also reminds me that Gemini is also correlated with local travel: trains, buses, cars, bicycles, and any type of vehicle that can transport you across the ever changing landscape on the road. When the sun in Gemini, when the sun is in Gemini, changes in the air. Even in the midst of a couple eclipses and Saturn Uranus square, the sun in Gemini brings a light-hearted, curious energy. Compared to the slow pace of Taurus, life is going to pick up speed and the energy will be more fast paced and airy in spite of Mercury slowing down to go retrograde. It's a great time to explore new ideas, open your mind to new perspectives, engage in light, interesting conversations, meet new people, and learn new things. Gemini is associated with the shoulders, arms, and hands, so you can wrap your arms around whatever tickles your fancy in the moment. The Gemini archetype is known to have two distinct sides or two faces, which is why it changes its mind frequently. If you have a strong Gemini influence in your chart or are friends with those who do, then you know how one minute they can be completely infatuated with chocolate, then in the next minute only vanilla will do. Under this sun transit, we can find ourselves changing our minds more frequently, and it's not always a matter of choice, it's often a matter of preference. For this reason, I think the best way to meet this energy is to embrace diversity. And if you can't embrace it, at least explore the possibility. With Gemini, variety is the spice of life, and there's always something new to discover. So, to calm the energy, the sun will be illuminating all Gemini and mercurial themes during this time period. Too much of anything, be it good, bad, or neutral, is still too much. Your mental processes could be scattered to the winds or off to the races. You could be bombarded with news or get downloaded with messages. You could experience diarrhea of the mouth or get caught up in gossip. Your local community, siblings, cousins, learning, and short distance travel are also highlighted right now, as are your upper limbs. An excess of this energy can show up in a variety of ways, and with the sky being what it is, it could be many ways. Since Mercury will be retrograde, all kinds of things from the past can reemerge out of nowhere, and computer problems or miscommunications are not uncommon. If you forget that you have a body, go into a mental spin cycle, or things are just too quick, ungrounded, and flighty, you may want to calm the energy. A good way to calm the energy is to write it out. The sign of Gemini correlates with writing. And when there is too much in the brain, paper and pen or tablet and keyboard can become your best friends. Not only does the act of writing allow you to use your Gemini hands, it also helps the mind figure things out. Even if you don't experience an excess of Gemini energy, writing is a good thing for anyone who has an active mind any time of the year, regardless of transits. Journaling, blogging, automatic writing, note taking, non dominant handwriting, or any way you can get words onto a piece of paper or a screen is a good thing, with the caveat that you may not want to be sending texts, emails, or letters as a form of conflict resolution or to give so and so a piece of your mind when Mercury is retrograde. Generally speaking, the chances of your intention being misunderstood during that time can be a little higher when Mercury is going backwards. So, to boost the energy, the Sun and Gemini both share the quality of heat. If you are experiencing physical, energetic, emotional, or mental coldness, you may need a little boost. This could be the case if you're experiencing heaviness or the feeling of being weighted down. As the Sun in Gemini brings natural, uplifting light and breezy energy. If you're having an opposite experience, increasing this energy could be beneficial. In Gemini, things move, not always in a clear direction or a lot of focus. However, they do involve motion. Being stuck, immovable, or blocked in any way could be an indication that you need a boost. And a great way to increase this energy is to get some comedic relief. Now, I'm not going to claim to know what you find funny or humorous. We all laugh at different things. For some of us, it's the absurdities of life. For others, it may involve being entertained by your favorite comedian or a funny movie. Maybe you're a fan of America's Funniest Videos or late night TV. Perhaps you have a friend who knows how to make you laugh. And maybe you just enjoy laughing at yourself. I know I do. I personally think I'm pretty hilarious sometimes, even when no one else does. So, when you're feeling cold, heavy, or stuck, laughter gets things moving. So, now let's look at Mercury and Gemini. Mercury and Gemini. We have been talking about this energy a lot, and there is always more to say. Did you know that the constellation of Gemini is named after the twin half brothers, Castor and Pollux, of Greco Roman mythology? They were birthed from their mother, Leda, who was impregnated by her husband, Tyndareus, king of Sparta, and the god of all gods, Zeus, at the same time. Not exactly the same time, but same day. These two brothers were as close as any two people could be, in spite of the fact that Castor was mortal and Pollux was immortal. I don't know if you're into Greek myths, and if you are, then you know that the stories often have more than one version, and oftentimes the characters in the stories show up in other stories. Well, I like the telling of the Castor and Pollux story that tells how they were born from an egg along with their twin sisters, Helen of Troy, Zeus's immortal daughter, who definitely has her own story, and Clytemnestra, the mortal daughter of Tyndareus. These two sisters were not nearly as bonded with each other as their brothers, nor were they close to their brothers. The version of this myth is chocked full of the dualistic nature associated with Gemini. Anyways, the constellation is named after the two brothers, as according to one telling, when Castor was killed, Pollux requested of his father Zeus to be granted the right to share his immortality with his brother so they could be together forever, and Zeus did so by placing them in the constellation of Gemini, where they remain together to this day. It only seems fitting that Mercury, the only deity who can travel between the realms of the mortal and immortal and between the realms of the living and dead, rules over this sign. One of the many associations with this planet is the tendency to divide and reunite, which really, if you think about it, has a lot to do with how logic and communications work. Okay, so I just went full on Mercury and Gemini for you, and I think I will leave this as an example of the best way to meet this energy, and that would be through storytelling. Not just any kind of storytelling, though. Tell your story as if you were a mythological character from the culture of your lineage. The stories we tell ourselves has a lot to do with how we experience life. And with Mercury and Gemini, make sure you're not only telling yourself stories you want to embody, tell them to others as well. You don't have to get all detailed or anything like that. That is way too Virgo. And, this isn't knocking Virgo. I have a lot of Virgo in my chart, so I'm not knocking it, just saying. So, back to your story. What I'm talking about here is speaking kindly and highly of yourself. Don't tell people about your self perceived flaws or problems, even if they have been true in the past. Instead, tell them about your superpowers and mythological abilities. This is a great way to not only meet this energy, but use it to align with your bigger self. I would also suggest you do the same when you are telling stories about other people. So, to calm the energy, because Gemini is associated with the nervous system, nerves can get frayed when this energy increases. Anxiousness, anxiety, overthinking, and hyperactivity could be signs of Gemini overload. And we can't forget that Mercury will be retrograde during the majority of this solar cycle, which for most of us makes these experiences more internally stimulating. And like I said before, if you were born when Mercury is retrograde, this could actually be quite comfortable energy for you. And regardless, too much Mercury and Gemini energy can have any of us scattered and blowing about in different directions. If you're having challenges with your shoulders, arms, hands, or can't seem to break away from your computer, you might be caught up in a heated Gemini windstorm. Another thing to watch out for with this energy is not eating enough or going on junk food binges. If you find yourself in need of calming this energy, the best thing you can do is to ground it. And there are many ways to do this. You could eat grounding foods such as root vegetables or plant your feet on the earth for a while. Black or red colored gemstones and crystals work great, or even just some rocks that you find outside that call your name. Put them in your pocket or somewhere on your person, or hold them in your hands and listen to their messages. You could also wear earth colored clothing or do some yin yoga, and Gemini knows the possibilities are endless. The important thing here, if you need to calm this energy, is just pick one thing, just one, and do it nice and slow. All right, so to boost the energy, while transits usually tend to increase the energy, it's possible that there may be something that's keeping you from experiencing all this energy has to offer. If you can't get yourself moving, your thoughts and speech are slow, or you feel like you're walking around in slow motion or a trance, you may need a little boost of this energy. Lung weakness, poor judgment, intensity, lack of humor, and listlessness are all indications you might be able to use a little more of the Gemini and Mercury magic. To boost this energy, get some fresh air. Open up your windows, drink some water, add a few drops of cell food. Iron-rich foods such as dark leafy greens help, and outdoor exercise can do a body, mind, and soul wonders. All right, so as I mentioned at the beginning of this ramble, I was going to speak a little more to the eclipses, and the first one is the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. When an eclipse occurs, one of the luminaries blocks the light of the other. In a lunar eclipse, the moon's light is blocked by the sun, and during a solar eclipse, it's the sun's light that's momentarily gone from view. It is believed that the effects are more powerful when the eclipses are total, meaning their light gets completely blocked, and also in the locations where the eclipse is visible. And this eclipse that we're having first tends to be a total lunar eclipse, which will be visible in the western half of the United States and partially visible in the eastern half. It's also going to be visible throughout Southeast Asia, Australia, South America, the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Ocean, and Antarctica. According to Judith Hill, who is widely known and respected in the astrological community for her work with eclipses and medical astrology, she states the zodiac sign is the most important factor for determining the effects of solar eclipse. For lunar eclipses, the sign is extremely important, but you must also include its opposite sign when considering the full range of potentials. Lunar eclipses always occur with a full moon and solar eclipses with a new moon. They happen when the lunation is taking place close to the moon's nodes. Currently, the transiting south node is in Sagittarius, so this is a south node lunar eclipse, which is more often associated with a releasing energy where things move out. Something ends or gets released, typically unexpectedly. South node eclipses bring power outages of celestial force, and this is one reason why our ancestors feared these events. Now, with that said, this does not have to be a bad experience or something to fear. When something is eclipsed in this manner, it is usually time for that thing to go, as eclipses typically involve forces that appear to affect things that are already breaking down or are weak. A lunar eclipse always brings something to a head. In the sign of Sagittarius, eclipses tend to be more subtle than in other signs, creating ongoing ripple effects in the things that correlate with Sagittarius and Gemini themes. This could have an impact on local, foreign, and even space travel because that's a thing right now. It could also affect the devices we use to connect, cultural values, religious beliefs, education, and mass movements. Riots could break out or crowds could be stimulated to great enthusiasm. Interestingly, projectile sports and weapons such as firearms and explosives are highlighted under this eclipse energy due to the Sagittarius influence. There could also be some kind of events that impact scientific or explorational discoveries because of the excitable energy. Sagittarius eclipses are also associated with wild parties, overindulgence, and crowd hysteria. Because, Jupiter rules Sagittarius and it likes everything bigger. So because eclipse energy is unpredictable, you never know how it's going to manifest on a personal or collective level. So a good way to meet this energy is to go with the flow. Avoid political or religious debates. Use caution when driving. Back up your data. Keep an eye on wandering pets. If you want to prepare, these things are good to do. Sagittarius also rules horses and herding behavior in animals, which is why we want to keep an eye on our wandering pets. So, depending on your own natal chart, some of you may experience this more so than others. The eclipse is happening at 10 degrees of Sagittarius, and if you have planets in Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, or Pisces between 5 and 15 degrees, you will likely feel this energy in one way or another. So, to calm the energy, the eclipse energy can be quite stimulating. So, if you're feeling agitated, restless, overexcited, or overstimulated, you may want to calm the energy. Sagittarius correlates with the sciatic nerve, and because this is a lunar eclipse, your nerves in general could be agitated or inflamed, especially in the Sagittarius areas or Gemini areas of the body, which include your shoulders, legs, arms, hands, hips, muscles, and voluntary nerves. This tends to increase hyperactive conditions such as Graves' disease or hyperthyroid. High blood pressure can be an issue, as can mental and neurological challenges such as restless leg syndrome. ADHD, mania, anxiety, and the list goes on. If you know you have a tendency to any of these types of conditions, it's probably a good idea to avoid stimulation prior to this event and after this event. Some say for at least 4 weeks after. There are many ways to calm this energy, and I would suggest tailoring it to suit your needs, but mainly just reduce stress, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Cut out caffeine and excess sugar, or at the very least, reduce your intake of these things. If you're hyperactive, go for runs or dance to move out excess energy. Make sure you get to bed at a good time for your natural rhythms, as insomnia can also be activated during this time. You could practice meditation, breathing exercises, mantras, or positive affirmations. Using calming herbs in the form of tea or supplements. Do a mindfulness practice or other activities that quiet the mind. Drink plenty of water and eat a good, balanced diet. If you've been dealing with any of the things I mentioned, then you already know it helps. So make sure you do those things before and after this eclipse. If you are a stranger to that type of energy and start feeling amped up, you can use any of the suggestions I mentioned or anything else that helps you reduce stress. Because eclipses bring a power surge or power outage, I'm not going to make any recommendations for boosting the energy. You're either going to feel this or not, and if you don't, then celebrate that as a blessing. All right, so now we have the Gemini solar eclipse. So this is an annular solar eclipse in the sign of Gemini, and this is occurring on the north node. Annular eclipses are considered to be a little less powerful than total eclipses as the moon leaves a ring of the sun visible. This eclipse can be seen throughout much of Europe, much of Asia, North and West Africa, much of North America, the Atlantic, and the Arctic. And it's taking place on the north node, so this indicates it will be bringing something in, most likely something unexpected that can actually be something you want, or it could be something that irritates you. In the sign of Gemini, the energy is often chaotic, nervous, flighty, jumpy, and fluctuating. The nervous system can get overcharged or undercharged. Gemini deals with communication, short distance travel, your locality, siblings, cousins, information and data, surprises, changes to travel plans, miscommunication, technology challenges, and erratic drivers are all common with the Gemini solar eclipse. The best way to eat let's not eat, let's meet this energy, is to witness yourself, whether things go well or you get unwanted surprises. Just notice how you react. Be curious, and you might be your own source of a really cool, unexpected surprise or two. So, to calm the energy, the nerves can get a bit strained under the influence of the Gemini solar eclipse. The nodes are still at 10 degrees, so the same applies to the signs mentioned above for the lunar eclipse. At this full moon solar eclipse in Gemini. So we also have Mercury just 1 degree from the sun and the moon in Gemini. So we're all in for some pretty significant Gemini energy, which can be changeable and dualistic. The nervous system, lungs, mental processes, shoulders, arms, and hands are all ruled by Gemini. And even calming, sedative natural remedies and therapies can act more powerfully than usual under this eclipse energy. So, quiet time may be one of the best ways to calm this energy. The impact of solar eclipses tend to last longer than lunar eclipses. So, before this event and after this event, probably a month after this event, just to be on the safe side, especially if you feel it, make some time for yourself to soak in a good dose of peace and quiet. Regular peace and quiet is really good. Find a place in nature where you can just sit for a while and absorb the sounds of the natural world. And if that's not an option for you, create a space in your home where you will be undisturbed and just listen to the beautiful sound of your breath. If your mind is racing, you could try some binaural beats or healing meditation music for calming the mind. The point is to be quiet. Quiet the mind. Quiet the body. Let yourself become the quiet. So that brings this Gemini solar cycle video to a close. And as usual, I will be posting the transits as they occur on our private Facebook group, Astroenergetics, which if you are not a member, you are welcome to join if you're on Facebook. Just send a request to join and you will be in. I also post the astrological transits on Instagram under Cosmic Marbles. It's the same info in both places. And for those interested in health and well-being, I am in the process of developing astrology classes for healing artists. These classes will include modern and medical astrological theory combined with universal life energy principles that apply to any personal or professional healing arts practice. I'm going to be releasing a free intro class soon. If you're not on my email list and would like to be notified of these upcoming events, please sign up at astroenergetics.net. So, thank you so much for taking the time out of your life to watch this video. And if you like it, please don't forget to hit like or subscribe and share it with your friends. That's it. So, wishing you and yours a very blessed, magical, beautiful Gemini solar cycle.